Stacy spent the day staring at herself in the mirror until she decided she was ready. All she had to do was finish adjusting the last details of her dress and leave the house. But there was something holding her back. The woman couldn't take her eyes off her reflection. She didn't mind wearing black even though she hated it. Her hair was pinned up and she wore almost no makeup. She was thinking about who she would meet when she arrived at her destination and realized she needed to bring sunglasses. After all, she didn't want anyone to see her crying, even if it was at her friend Honey's farewell. Stacy was still in denial about her best friend's departure. She spent the day reflecting on how unfair the world was to take Honey away at such a young age. Stacy was indignant at fate while alone at home, reflecting, saying that no one should die at the age of 30. She wasn't sick, the girl reasoned. Why did her heart suddenly stop? And among the millions of possibilities, Stacy suspected Honey was seriously ill and concealing it, but nothing made sense. Awakening from her thoughts, Stacy took a deep breath and, trying not to cry, left the house. There were so many people in the cemetery that the girl was confused. She barely knew anyone. Honey's aunt was the only relative she had lived with, but she hadn't shown up. Stacy didn't know much about her best friend's past, other than the fact that Honey had grown up in a small village, in a small house that her parents had left before they died many years ago, but Stacy had never been there. The girl saw only one familiar face while looking for someone. Stacy recognized Honey's cousin Charlie because she had seen pictures of him before. Stacy said a shy hi to him and muttered to Charlie that she had no idea Honey had so many friends. The boy responded calmly that his cousin had few friends and that they were his colleagues and neighbors. Honey's cousin concluded by saying that only he and Stacy were truly in pain in that wait. He also said that some co-workers and everyone else came to fulfill a duty, while the rest came out of curiosity. Stacy paused for a moment, her gaze fixed on the cloudy sky. As she stood outside, she could hear the rain hitting the coffin lid as cemetery workers dumped dirt into the grave with shovels. Stacy felt a chill when it was all over. She thought she was going to pass out, but she didn't. The girl knew the pain of losing her friend would never go away, but she needed to be strong in that moment. Charlie stopped her on the way home and handed her a white envelope with nothing written on it but a sheet of paper inside. Stacy turned it over in her hands, puzzled, and examined it from every angle. Honey had asked Charlie 3 months ago to give it to Stacy in case anything happened to her. Then Honey's cousin wiped away his tears and said goodbye. Stacy looked at the envelope and wanted to open it right away, but she was strong and restrained herself. If it was Honey's very last letter to her, she should read it at home rather than in front of all those strangers so she doesn't burst into tears. Stacy arrived home a few hours later. She didn't have time to think. All she wanted to do was open the letter and be consoled by her friend's words, to kill the longing she was feeling for Honey. She sighed sadly, trying to calm herself in order to begin reading, but it was futile, and Stacy was more nervous than ever. So she began to read the writing. Her face grew paler with each line she read. Stacy couldn't stop crying when she got to the end of the letter. How could that be? She wondered. Why did Honey make such a huge sacrifice for me? Stacy cried for a long time. Anger, sadness, and confusion flashed across her face, a jumble of emotions she had never felt before in her brief life. After a long period of crying and rereading the letter, the young woman stood up with determination and knew what she had to do. Her only concern was how Paul would react to everything. After all, he was more concerned about the whole thing than she was. As she pondered how she would tell Paul, a wave of nostalgia washed over her, reminding her that she and Honey had met during their first year of college and had shared a dorm room for a few years. Stacy was only 18 at that time, and Honey was 22. Despite the fact that Honey was a country girl and Stacy grew up in the city, they quickly became best friends. Both were excellent students who spent the majority of their spare time studying and doing what really mattered to them. Honey was walking through the park one day when she came across a handsome young man. Soon, feelings erupted between them, and the conversation seemed to go on forever. Honey fell hopelessly in love and felt completely fulfilled in a way she had never felt before in her life. Only a month later, she told her best friend about him. Stacy was even upset with Honey for keeping such an event from her for so long, but she was overjoyed for her friend and was completely over it after a few minutes. Honey then had to answer thousands of questions about this young man, concluding that he was wonderful. "I think he loves me very much. And yes, we were already very close, but don't worry, I'll introduce him to you soon, and then you'll get to see him for yourself," Honey said to Stacy with much excitement. The young woman in love never mentioned the name or age of the man who was the source of her joy. At the time, she didn't even have a single picture of him. Time passed, and Honey's promised meeting never took place. Stacy had never met her friend's boyfriend and began to notice that she had suddenly become sad and thoughtful, which was unusual for her. This went on until one night, in desperation, Honey came to Stacy and told her that she had ended her relationship with her boyfriend for good. Honey explained, "He told me that he no longer loved me because he had met another girl who had won his heart. He wants to be with me, but the heart cannot decide. But I still love him very much. Why is life so unjust?" In an effort to support her friend, Stacy said, "Forget about him. Let him go to someone else if he doesn't love you. I'm relieved that nothing serious happened. Don't shed any tears. You're lucky it ended this way. Breaking up now is preferable to being betrayed later. And you will undoubtedly find a good guy who will carry you in his arms, marry you, and live happily ever after." As time passed, Stacy tried to cheer up her friend. After a month, Honey appeared to have recovered somewhat from the difficult breakup, and Stacy revealed to Honey that she had met a young boy and was in love with him. She went on to explain that they had known each other for 2 months, but only started dating a month ago, describing the amazing dates they had and how happy this young man made her, to the point of planning marriage and other future plans. Honey looked at her best friend puzzled, thinking, how ironic of fate. She had just broken up with her boyfriend a month ago, and Stacy had met her love at the same time. The girl wondered why everything had to be so unfair. Then one day, Stacy suggested a meeting for the three of them, and her friend agreed. But if she had known how this moment would end and what emotions she would experience, she would have packed her bags and left immediately. Stacy and Honey were sitting on a bench in the park after school one fateful day when Stacy called out loudly to someone, and when Honey turned around, she thought she was in a nightmare. Stacy kissed the young man on the cheek as he approached and soon introduced Honey and Paul to each other, who briefly stared at each other in silence. Stacy was the only one who couldn't figure out what was wrong with them and wondered why her friend and her new boyfriend were acting so strangely. She even inquired as to whether they knew each other. Honey exclaimed before Paul could open his mouth to respond, "Of course not. We have never met." The girl, who was still depressed, looked at Paul and said, "It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Stacy has told me so much about you that it feels like I've known you for a long time." Paul shyly stated that he was pleased to finally meet Stacy's best friend, but that he needed to speak with his girlfriend. Honey then cut in again, saying, "Oh, I forgot I had to go to the dean's office. Don't worry, it'll only take a minute. I'll catch up with you later." "So, Paul, please don't hurt my friend. I'm willing to go to any length to protect her. I am absolutely delighted that you make Stacy happy, and she is beaming with joy. You complement each other perfectly. That's it. I have to leave right now." When Stacy returned to the dorm hours later, Honey was gone. Her friend only found a note saying that something had happened to her aunt and that she needed to return to her village right away. Stacy managed to get in touch with her friend only a few weeks later, and Honey explained that she had taken a year's academic leave for family reasons because her aunt had suddenly fallen ill and she would be responsible for caring for her. Time passed, and no matter how much Stacy insisted on going to help her, Honey flatly refused and didn't even give her an address to avoid any surprises. She never returned to college as promised, and she rarely returned her friends' phone calls. The two friends who had been so close and had so much in common were now just acquaintances who didn't even speak to each other anymore. Stacy married Paul during the 5 years since she last saw Honey. She got a good job and a loving husband after graduating from college with honors. Everything was perfect except for Stacy's inability to conceive. Following a thorough examination, the woman was diagnosed with a rare condition that rendered childbirth impossible, causing great sadness for the young couple. Stacy did not take the news well, no matter how much Paul comforted her. Under such extreme pressure, she decided to divorce Paul, arguing that he deserved a better wife, one who could bear his children. The man insisted, but she refused, and the marriage was soon over. Stacy called Honey almost immediately after the separation because she didn't know what to do or who to tell. Her former friend arrived at her house the next day. Stacy barely recognized her after so much time apart, She had changed so much and matured, as if she had gone through serious issues in her personal life. Time passed, and despite everything, it was Honey who managed to get Stacy out of the worst of the situations and convince her to seek psychological help. Stacy was thus able to begin a new life, but without her beloved Paul and the children she had planned to have. A phone call from Charlie, her dead friend's cousin, jolted Stacy out of her reverie. When the boy asked if Stacy had read the letter, she replied, "Yes, I did. Did you know the whole time?" She inquired about Charlie, and he confirmed it, saying, "Honey made us promise not to tell anyone. That was her choice. But Stacy, you have to come as soon as possible. They need you here. Besides, it's what she wanted." Stacy frowned and said that she hadn't decided yet, but that she would definitely go to Honey's villa the next day, telling Charlie that she still couldn't believe it was all happening. Stacy got in her car early in the morning and was soon at the entrance to the village where Honey was born. She stood outside for a few moments before Honey's aunt came out of the house and waved her in. Stacy walked into the house. At the table, there was a boy and a girl. They greeted Stacy with intense stares. Stacy was struck by how much the children resembled Paul. Years before, when Stacy introduced her best friend to the man she loved, she had no idea that Paul was the one who had broken Honey's heart. On second thought, the woman was certain that Paul had no intention of deceiving anyone, but he had no idea Honey was pregnant. Stacy deduced from the letter that Honey discovered she was pregnant shortly before their second date. According to the letter, Honey intended to call Paul and inform him of the pregnancy, but when she discovered that he was Stacy's new love, she dropped everything to avoid interfering with her friend's happiness and returned to her hometown. Honey later gave birth to twins, Paul's children, after her aunt took her in and supported her. Except for her aunt and Honey, no one knew who the father of the children was. And then, all of a sudden, Honey became ill and went to the nearest hospital, where doctors diagnosed her with a brain tumor, which would necessitate a risky surgery to try to save her, but which was ultimately unsuccessful. Stacy looked at the children, who were waiting for the young woman to say something. "Yes, I finally came, but not just to meet them," she said. "I came to take you for a walk and, if you like, introduce you to your father." The boy and girl exchanged glances. The girl then exclaimed excitedly, "They agreed!" Stacy wasn't sure if she could find Paul because he had moved to another city after the divorce, and they had never called or met again. Maybe he even changed his phone number. The lady decided not to waste any time and called her ex-husband. As soon as he picked up, Stacy immediately asked, "How come you never said you knew Honey?" Paul replied, "I wanted to tell you the moment you introduced us back then, but Honey made it clear to me that she didn't want me to tell you, and didn't say anything either." "Honey is gone," Stacy says after a few seconds of silence. "She's gone." And despite her best efforts, she was unable to say this without breaking down in tears, and Paul began to console her. "Paul, Honey left me a letter telling me everything," the woman says after she's recovered. "You need to come here right away because I need to introduce you to some people." "Introduce me to whom? I don't understand," Paul responds. "You need to meet your children, Paul," Stacy says. Paul jumped in his car and drove anxiously to Honey's village. When he saw the children's faces, a strange sensation invaded his body, and his eyes filled with tears as he realized his resemblance to the twins. The man, still unable to believe what he was witnessing, hugged the children and burst into tears. 2 years have passed. Paul and Stacy remarried. They couldn't get over their feelings and continued to love each other as before. Although Paul couldn't believe Honey had kept the truth from him at first, he was extremely grateful to her. After all these years, Honey gave Paul and Stacy the opportunity to be happy, just like those first few years. The first time, she simply walked away, allowing their loving hearts to remain together. And the second time, she reunited them and entrusted them to her children, whom she loved above all. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. And this other story that is appearing on the screen will most likely move you as well. Have a nice day and see you in the next video.